Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the tools that are available when you're direct modeling. Now, in most cases, we're talking about importing a neutral CAD format like a Parasolid, an IGES, or a step file, but in some cases, you can actually just turn history off and get access to these tools. So inside of our Create menu, our Modify menu, as well as our Inspect menu, we're going to notice a couple new tools appear as soon as we turn off Capture Design History. We're going to select Continue, and under Inspect, we now have a Validate option. Under Modify, we now have Edit Face, which converts a face of our surface or a solid body to a sub-D or T-spline face. We also have the Convert tool at the bottom. And then under the Create menu, we've got Find Features and Fluid Volume. So we're going to take a look at each of these and try to understand what they do so we can better understand when we might use them. To get started, I'm first going to import a model. So I'm going to go to my Open, navigate to my computer, and just bring in a step file. Now, I've got one here called Flange, and this is a basic part that was created in Fusion and exported as a step file. When we import a model, by default, Fusion is going to have history turned off, which is the direct modeling workflow. We can turn that back on by right-clicking and selecting Capture Design History, but before we do that, let's take a couple seconds to look at these other tools. Under the Create menu, if we select Find Features, we'll have a large list of features that it's going to look for, things like fillets and holes. And if we select OK, we'll notice in the browser that now we get a list of the features it found. We have extrude, we've got a pattern of hole features, and we've got a couple of fillets. Now, this is a little misleading because there's not a whole lot we can do with this. When we're in direct modeling and we're looking for these features or we're using a base feature option with history turned on, then basically what we're doing is we're keeping a list of the features, but some cases you can modify them and some you can't. For example, the fillet, I can modify the fillet because it's essentially just offsetting the face. If we go to something like the extrude, however, the only thing I can do is move copy. When we select move copy, what this is going to do is allow us to select a face, for example, and we can pull that face up or down, but we're not actually affecting an original extrude feature. And you might be thinking, okay, well, why don't we just turn history on? Unfortunately, if we turn history on, all that information goes away. It's stored inside of this base feature. And if we right click and edit this base feature, it's still information that's there, but we really don't have direct access to bring that over into the history capture. So the best thing that you could do is better understand how features were created and use direct modeling tools to make some modifications. For example, if we wanted to delete this face and we didn't want to counterbore, we could select faces and we could remove them. For example, just hitting the delete key. But in most cases, that's not really going to be very beneficial. So let's go ahead and just turn history back off and talk about some of the other features. The fluid volume feature is one that allows us to create an internal or external fluid volume based on a closed set of watertight surfaces. Now in this case, we've got a solid body, which is perfectly fine. And you'll notice that if I just select one face, nothing happens. We need to select an entire body, and then it'll be able to find a fluid volume. In this case, we're going to use external, and we're going to have an offset for the box of 10 millimeters. When I say OK, what this is going to do is it's going to create a new component. And components don't behave the same way in direct modeling as they do when you've got history turned on, because it can't capture its location or its position, so we don't have access to applied joints, and we really can't do much with components in a traditional sense other than organize the browser. But if I go to my opacity control and I hide the original body, you'll see that essentially what we've done is we've created a mold cavity. Now, you could use this to create internal volumes for things like fluid paths, but you will need to cap off the ends with surfaces, and you'll need to include those surfaces in that selection when using fluid volume. Let's go ahead and also take a look at Modify Edit Face. When we use Modify Edit Face, what we're doing is we're selecting a face and converting it to a subdivided model. I can then make some adjustments. I can pull it up and say OK. And it's going to automatically use Replace Face on whatever we created. Let's right click and change the opacity back to 100%. And you can see that we've modified the top of that face. Now this workflow, this functionality is available if you are capturing history. You just need to do it within the form tools. You'll need to go to Utilities and select Convert, and there'll be an option to convert a B-rep face to T-spline. So that functionality is not new. It's only different because we're in direct modeling workflow, and it's just available as edit face. The convert tool is also listed here on modify, which is the same one we just looked at by going to our form tool section. So the last tool that we want to look at is validate. Now, this is really a tool for surfaces, so I'm going to go ahead and open up a version of this that's surfaces. So when we're using the validate tool, what we're basically doing is we're using this tool to search through our design and find duplicate faces and potentially find errors that would be hard to find otherwise. Now, there are things that it won't do. So for example, in this, I've got 2 duplicate faces on the top that are unstitched, and I've got one here that's basically just the rest of the body. If we hide the top ones, we can see that the body is just open. And if we bring them back, you really couldn't tell that there were extra faces here. So using this validate tool, we've got 2 main options. We've got basic and standard. The basic option is going to look through the model for topological errors, geometric errors, and uncertainty errors. When we go to the standard option, it covers all the same stuff as basic, but it will also look for things like intersecting or overlapping faces. What we're going to do here is just allow it to repair. We can put on some gap healing options. And if you know what a gap is on your model, then you can use those values. And we can have it do things like remove small edges and faces and refit bad surfaces. So when we say OK, it'll give us a dialog and it'll tell us exactly what it did. But in this case, you'll notice it automatically removed that duplicate face, but it wasn't able to heal any gaps or hold or put things together as a solid body. If instead we now go to our surface tools, and we select both of these bodies, even though we know they're close, we can see red lines showing us that there is a gap there. What we need to do is increase the tolerance value until we get to basically a number that's bigger than that gap, and then it'll be able to heal it. What you'll find with this process is if you're trying to bring in complex surfaces, maybe something that you've found online and you're working with, it'll do a much better job of finding bad or duplicate faces or potential errors that it can heal. With prismatic parts like this, there's really not a whole lot that it's looking for outside of just basic gaps and things that it can heal easily. So if you are working on imported models and you do need to do things like find features, my suggestion is you take a look at the model when you import it, you try to find or resolve any potential errors, and then you turn history capture on. And once you have history capture on, I would suggest beginning to recreate your part based on the features and the information you have here. It's not really very beneficial to take a model and try to find those features and then do something with that information because it's locked in that direct modeling state. However, if you just need the part, there's really not anything else you need to do. Just import it and turn history on. Keep in mind that there are options inside of your user preferences that determine what happens when you import a design. So for example, design history, we've got this option to not capture design history or to capture design history or to prompt you every time. So the default for bringing in a neutral CAD format like an IGES or a STEP or a Parasolid is to have that history capture turned off. But if you allow it to prompt you every time, then you could simply get past that by saying, no, turn history capture on. I find that it's better to just manually turn it on because I honestly don't import that many models directly into Fusion. So it would just be more of a hassle for all of the other designs that I create. Now, if you have any questions on this or anything else, please leave a comment and let me know. If there's something that you want to see on this channel, let us know that as well. We do have a long list, but I try to get to everything that people suggest. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.